What you're about to witness in this hearing is far more than raised voices and procedural chaos. At its core, it's a fight over democracy, power, and who gets to be heard in America's capital. Rashida Tlaib wasn't just defending Washington, D.C. as a place. She was defending the people who live there.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Ms. Tlaib from Michigan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I think it's really important. I mean, we're talking about 700,000 people that live here, and I feel like their voice gets completely just dismissed. And so, if I may, Mr. Chair, ask unanimous consent to enter the record the Washington Post poll of D.C. residents found 8 out of 8 in 10 opposed Trump's taking over of their local police and sending in federal troops.
Without objection to order.
I think it's also really important to understand, the incredible kind of slanderous, defamation, I don't know what to call it. They're just burying Washington, D.C. You just heard them speak about our nation's capital in that way, in a way that I feel very much like that's not what I see. I see people walking around with their families, people enjoying time to see these beautiful, incredible, beautiful monuments and everything. There's a pride here too. And so I just want to bring the DC residents into this committee because I feel like they are being made invisible. And this really ugly picture that is not reflective. And I'm from Detroit. I've seen it happen to my city. And it's despicable in a way that I feel like, really goes up against our values. One of the things that I know in every abuse of power that, we let President Trump and the administration get away with in D.C., it will be replicated. It will be expanded across the country, and it is going to tear apart our communities. Mr. Jackson, I talked to you about a little bit about this, but I think it's important to understand that we do have a mental health crisis, that we have a housing crisis, affordability crisis. Can you police any of those away?
No.
You can't police away homelessness. And the way they talk about our homeless neighbors is so, no wonder there's violence increasing towards homeless neighbors. I see it already, the brutality of it. When we see housing costs go up, when we see, again, the lack or dismissiveness of the mental health crisis that we continue to grow. And it's not just this administration, and the previous administrations as well. No one has moved with the urgency that is needed. Just last week, the committee approved over a dozen bills regarding Washington, D.C. And, I'm just curious. Criminalize children. My colleague from Boston talked about this. It basically interfered with legislation already passed by the local government. Was anyone on this panel consulted? Any of you? Raise your hand if you were consulted on any of these bills. Yeah.
We were not.
One of the things that, AG, I've been listening to you, one of the bills actually eliminates your position completely. What effect would that have? Completely eliminating your position in regards to be able to do the job that you do to protecting all the families in Washington, D.C.
We'll start with the fact that more than 70% of the residents of the District of Columbia overwhelmingly voted for having an independent elected attorney general.
That's right.
And that's a recognition of the fact that when an attorney general is directly accountable to the people, directly responsive to the people, we are much better at doing our job in terms of addressing housing affordability and conditions in slumlords, seniors and consumers who are being scammed, addressing the issues that are most important to DC residents, because I am accountable to them.
I read wage theft is an issue, workplace discrimination. There's a number of issues that need to be addressed, and they're not going to address that. They want to paint you all as this ugly, dark, all just out in the street. The way, it's just unbelievable because they all live here. I don't see it. I don't see what they see. I don't understand why we're allowing that to happen, because I actually think it's going to hurt our communities. People are going to look at Washington, D.C. folks in a way that I think is going to be very painful, but also, I don't know, Mr. Jackson, I heard the stories. People didn't leave their homes. They weren't leaving their homes. Businesses didn't see people coming into, that's what we want in our nation's capital. Stay in your house, don't move, don't go anywhere, stay fearful. It's unbelievable that my colleagues continue again to eject this narrative and this rhetoric in regards to it. But I think it's important, Mr. Chair, just like in DC, home rule was one out of Black freedom struggle in the fight for civil rights. We can't be passive right now. So nobody over there should take anything we say serious, so personally, as if we're attacking them. No, we're attacking a process. We're not attacking people here. And I think it's really important. We need to stand up against this fascist takeover. That's not a bad word. It's a fact. And here in DC and across the country, it is so incredibly important, Mr. Chair, that this committee does not allow rhetoric that defames and or paints Washington D.C. in a way that you all haven't really truly seen. You're just reading it. No, you're just reading it or something off of some.
Will the gentlelady yield to a question?
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Will the gentlelady
No, I don't
yield?
yield. I don't even have time. I can tell you.
Your time's expired.
It is expired, but
Tlaib,
Mr. Chair,
but
you all
I
live
like
here,
Mr.
and
Tlaib.
you're not telling people the beautiful parts that you do see in our
Mr.
nation's
Tlaib.
capital. And no, it's just wrong how we're doing it.
Chairman, I think
Wrong.
it's insane if
But
the
you're
gentlelady
gonna
doesn't
look
have
at
an
the
argument, but she's going to
Washington
refer
DC
to
as a
me and some of my
You yield to
colleagues.
Mr. Donald.
Like we were from the Third Reich. This is
You're gonna
insane.
look at
It's
14,
insane.
15-year-olds as
It's
a bunch of
insane.
criminals?
It's insane.
Oh,
Do I look
you're
like a member of the Third Reich to you, Ms.
Please,
Tlaib?
please,
Is that what I look like to you?
You're the one taking your voting
Is that what you
card,
think?
giving it
Is that
to
what you
somebody,
think?
giving
Is
it
that
a
what you
card.
think?
No, that's unethical.
I think it's radical and I think it's insane. And I'll respect everything that you say. But to say something like that to myself and a lot of my colleagues.
More than 700,000 Americans who pay federal taxes, serve in the military, follow federal laws, yet still lack full Democratic representation. Her opening move, entering a Washington Post poll into the record, was intentional. 8 out of 10 D.C. residents oppose federal takeover of their local police and the deployment of federal troops. That statistic matters because it directly contradicts the narrative being pushed in the hearing that D.C. residents need to be safe from themselves. What Tlaib was pushing back against is something many communities recognize all too well. She drew a direct line between what's happening now in Washington and what has historically happened in cities like Detroit, cities that are disproportionately black, often portrayed as dangerous, lawless, or broken in order to justify outside control. That kind of rhetoric isn't harmless. It shapes public perception, drives fear, and creates political cover for stripping people of local power. Her argument also cut deeper than policing. She made a point that often gets lost in these debates. You cannot police away homelessness. You cannot police away a mental health crisis. And you cannot police away unaffordable housing. Those are policy failures, not criminal ones. When leaders choose law enforcement as the primary solution, it often leads to criminalizing poverty instead of addressing its causes. And when homeless people are talked about as threats instead of neighbors, violence against them increases, something advocates and data have shown time and again. Another critical moment came when Tlaib asked whether anyone on the panel had been consulted about the DC-related bills Congress recently approved. No hands went up. That silence said everything. Congress was legislating over DC without input from the very officials tasked with protecting and serving its residents. That's not oversight. That's imposition. The exchange about eliminating the elected DC Attorney General's position revealed what's really at stake. DC residents voted overwhelmingly to have an independent AG, precisely because accountability matters. An AG who answers to voters can focus on issues like wage theft, housing abuse, consumer fraud, and workplace discrimination, issues that directly affect everyday life. Removing that role wouldn't make DC safer. It would make residents less protected. As tensions escalated, the hearing broke down into shouting, interruptions, and accusations of extremism. But that chaos shouldn't distract from the substance. When Tlaib used the word fascist, she wasn't calling individual members Nazis, despite how it was framed by her opponents. She was criticizing a process, the concentration of power, the erosion of local control, and the use of fear-based narratives to justify federal overreach. That distinction matters, even when emotions run high. The irony is that many of the lawmakers condemning DC's supposed failures live in the city themselves. They see the same neighborhoods, the same families, the same cultural life, yet choose to describe DC as something unrecognizable to the people who call it home. That disconnect is exactly what fuels distrust and resentment. This hearing wasn't really about crime statistics or procedure. It was about whether democracy applies equally, or whether some Americans will always be governed without their consent. DC home rule wasn't handed down casually. It was won through civil rights struggle. Rolling it back sets a precedent that goes far beyond the district. If you watched this and felt confused, frustrated, or angry, you're not alone, and that reaction is valid. The bigger question is what happens next. Do we allow fear-based politics to override self-determination, or do we insist that democracy includes everyone? If this breakdown helped you understand what was really happening beneath the shouting, make sure you stay engaged, share this, subscribe, and keep paying attention, because the decisions made in rooms like this don't stay there. They shape communities, rights, and the future of democracy itself.